Because, you know, the concept of Jamaica, it's not just that you are born in the country. It's not just that you are a citizen of the country. I'm going to use this term in its ordinary meaning. People identify as Jamaicans from all over the world. They've never been to the country, but they identify with the people. They identify with the struggle. They know what we represent, what we stand for. They know that the Jamaican voice is amplified on the world stage. They know that we speak up for justice and truth. So, there are many persons right across the world who identify with the black, green, and gold. And when we count our diaspora, we count persons who have a connection through birth or through lineage, hereditary. But inevitably, there are persons who, when the census is taken up, will say, you know, I have Jamaican heritage. There's no proof of it, really, but we accept it. So the concept of being Jamaican, it's very, very broad. And it has been to our benefit in many instances. And it has created a brand that is well known, well established around the world. And it helps the diaspora to be identified with the brand, particularly in multicultural societies, in plural societies, in societies that are structured by group association. It is important that you have a homeland that you can identify with. Otherwise, you could get lost or overlooked or ignored. So the brand of being Jamaica and being attached to Jamaica and having a homeland is a valuable asset. But that valuable asset is equivalent in value of your passport. And during the pandemic, the various consuls around the world noticed an uptick in persons trying to get their Jamaican passport. And as the world becomes even more uncertain geopolitically, there are many persons who are seeking to establish their Jamaican citizenship and to get their Jamaican passport. And we love that. We love that. But the question is always asked, you know, Jamaica does so well on the international stage for a small country. We exercise an oversized weight on, you know, several global issues. If in the arena of culture and arts, Jamaica is there. And in fact, one could argue that, you know, pop culture has a great origin from Jamaica. You know, this year, hip-hop celebrates 50 years. It is said that one of the founding fathers of hip-hop, Kool Herc, I don't know how many of you have heard that name, that he's Jamaican. But of course, when you look at the impact of reggae music and dancehall on hip-hop and pop music, it's significant. Right, so clearly, the Jamaican culture has influenced and deepened, enriched popular culture globally. In sports, you know, the fastest man, the fastest woman, those records still stand. And in many other areas of endeavor, Jamaicans have done well in sports. But, you know, Jamaica has always been a voice for the oppressed. We've always been a voice that speaks up for what is right, for the truth in world affairs. And we are a democratic country, and we believe strongly in democratic values and democratic principles. In fact, you know, I like to say, and it has not yet been contested, that Jamaica is the oldest black democracy in the world. Think about it. We have had unbroken elections since 1943. Unbroken. We have changed governments uninterrupted, even by one vote. Even in the turbulent times of the 70s. So we should be very proud of that fact as to who we are on the global stage. In 1962, we decided to take our independence. And we have been, since then, an independent nation. We are still part of the Commonwealth of countries, of which Canada is a member of that family. And I think we can be very proud of what we have built in terms of a sovereign nation. I give you a little history. Before the Haitian Revolution began, it is well documented in history that a Jamaican slave, let me use the appropriate term, a Jamaican enslaved, escaped Jamaica, found his way to Haiti. His name is variously recorded as Dirty Bookman. I mean, you can literally translate it. And he was almost like a priest. And it is said that he inspired Toussaint Louverture and others in the Haitian Revolution. A couple of hundred years after that, you would have Marcus Garvey, who would have again fled Jamaica, found his way to London, I believe first, and then the United States, and then started he really started the movement of being black conscious. Back to Africa. You know, one of the things that we don't speak much about of Marcus Garvey is that Marcus Garvey had the first black-owned company to be registered on the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, he started the whole Pan-Africanism and inspired much of the liberation movement in Africa. And then we had the great poet Bob Marley. Bob Marley, his work was the theme song behind liberation in Africa. He inspired people around the world who were oppressed, who were downtrodden, to get up, stand up for your rights, to be assertive of yourself. Very powerful. And that's how you begin to understand what it means to be Jamaican. But even before then, we had Sam Sharp. How many of you know about Sam Sharp? One of our national heroes. It was Sam Sharp's rebellion, the Christmas Rebellion, which effectively catalyzed the abolition of slavery in the British West Indies. So Jamaica has always had some feature role in global affairs, and we've always been there for a small nation. So when the analysis of Jamaica is being done, persons are always confounded. This nation has done so well in global affairs, in sports, in contributing to arts, in science. We have people who have done so well. Wherever they go, they excel. But why is it that Jamaica, our country, our economy, has not fulfilled its true potential? I think that's something that we all have to confront. It's a reality, but it's part of the confounding nature of Jamaica. It's one of our renowned professor, Harvard professor, Orlando Patterson, wrote a book about it, and he said, you know, Jamaica, the confounding island. We produce such great people, such great minds, such influential people, but at the same time, we have some people that do some things that sometimes you wonder. You know, we have people who are the fastest in the world, but our bureaucracy is so slow. It's a confounding reality. Very confounding. So, I see my job then as to ensure that Jamaica lives up to its true potential. That creates value for Jamaicans at home, but it creates value for our diaspora abroad. It gives you value in your community. Many of you have contributed significantly to your new home or to where you were now born from Jamaican parentage or heritage. and privately and secretly wish that you could have done the same in Jamaica. And some of you even have tried and have found that it may not be as straightforward to get it done. And I think we have to start with that acknowledgement that there needs to be more work on Jamaica. But the good thing is that we never give up on our country. We're always hopeful and optimistic and positive about our country. I know many of you cuss. What makes somebody say anything bad about Jamaica around here? It's the reality. It's the reality. Because if it's one thing, there is almost an extreme exceptionalism about Jamaica that Jamaicans have. We just believe we are the best. There you go. I think now, however, that we have to be careful that we are adding to the brand. No. Because if you look at it, you know, every generation comes and adds to the brand, does something significant, even as there are those who are subtracting from the brand. So we have to be now very protective of the brand, and we all have to keep adding to the brand as a collective legacy, the collective heritage, the collective patrimony. Now, one of the things we want to do in adding to the brand as people who are very smart, people who are very fast, people who are very creative, we now need to add economic prosperity to the brand, economic independence to the brand. I mean, the brand is known, sun, sea, and sand. We want the brand now to be expanded, business, science, technology. Peace. World-class infrastructure, efficiency and productivity. Those are things now I think that this generation of Jamaicans, we need to add these values and principles to the brand. Because I'm sure all of you watch your televisions and you are all connected on the internet. You probably know more about what is happening there than most Jamaicans. And I'm sure you're quietly concerned that violence is creeping up into the consciousness and awareness and definition of brand Jamaica. I'm sure you're seeing some of the bizarre things that are happening. And you're saying, this is not my Jamaica, this shouldn't be. It's challenging the notion, you know, of Jamaica. No problem, man. So it's up to my generation, us, to make a positive impact on the brand. Now, the brand of Jamaica is in the process of expanding and transforming in an area in which we were not known for. And that is the area of management of the economy, fiscal management of the economy, monetary management of the economy, economic growth policies towards the economy, full employment. These are not areas for which we were known. But Jamaica ended up on the brink of a crisis about 15 years ago, coming out of the last global recession in 2008, 2009, thereabouts. And we had to make some tough decisions about how we were going to rescue our economy. And that created a social consensus around what is called fiscal discipline. And just very quickly to explain what the fiscal discipline is, it's the management of the public finances, how you raise taxes and how you spend it. That budgeting process, we call that fiscal matters. And the discipline, which is to ensure that you don't spend what you don't have. And that's a part of the Jamaican household ethic. Right? We don't like borrow. But somehow the government didn't get that discipline for many years. And it's not always the government's fault in terms of borrowing. Much of it was because of what we call exogenous shocks, meaning things that happen outside of our control. Hurricanes and storms and heavy weather and increase in the oil price, fall in the price of bauxite, so our revenues go down. When oil prices increase, our expenses go up. We are price takers. We can't do anything about that. And if that knocks out our budget, then how are we going to provide for the people? We have to borrow. But some of it was waste, efficiency, and corruption. So when we were confronted in 2008, 2009, we started the process of correcting this, putting in place laws and strong policies to manage our fiscal affairs, revenues that we collect in taxes and how we spend it. To get closer to managing the deficit, the difference between the revenues and what we spend. And we ensured that even when there was a change in government, that this fiscal management became rooted in our public administration and became part of our public management culture. So right now, we have put in place very strong institutions to make sure that Jamaica does not go back to this addiction to borrowing and profligate spending. And I give you, just to show you how Jamaica has changed, an index of that, and some of you might be following it. 10 years ago, our debt, what we owe to what we produce, you might have heard this said, the debt to GDP, was 150%, meaning that we owe 150% or 50% more than what we produce. We were paying as high as 70 cents out of every dollar for debt servicing. Yeah, 10 years ago. But once we decided as a country, JLP and PNP, independent church people, civil society, that it is an important thing to do. We started to come to grips with this. So now our debt is going to be somewhere around 74% of GDP at the end of this financial year. There was a time when our reserves, was less than $1 billion US. In fact, there was a time when our ability to import seemed to have been at risk. Now our reserves are the highest they have ever been, almost $4.5 billion US in reserve. I mean, there was a time when, the dollar would be running away wildly. Dollar is very stable now. It's been stable for the last 4 or 5 years. There was a time when inflation would have eaten up income in a rapid way. Now, the inflation rate is back down to where we target it. But I want to spend 2 minutes on this business of inflation. Now, when the pandemic struck, nobody expected it. Nobody saw it coming. I'm sure all of you here were impacted. Some of you had to stay at home. Some of you were laid off your jobs, or some of you were given half pay or partial pay. The lockdowns would have affected you, especially if you were self-employed. It was a really difficult time. But as we came out of the pandemic, it took some time for the supply chains of goods and services to catch up with this unleashed demand after the pandemic ended. And that caused prices to rise. But more than that, some governments who were able to did put out significant cash in the economy in terms of support. So there was also cash in the economy. And that too contributed to some rise in inflation. Same thing happened in Jamaica. But if you say to anyone to say, look, this is a global issue, we say, nah, government fault. And I gather it is the same conversation here in Canada as it is in Jamaica. And this is always the case. People are going to blame governments for the increase in the cost of living. And it is a difficult time, not just for Jamaicans, but for Canadians, in fact, for almost every country, as we seek to come out of the pandemic. But why I'm spending a little time on it is that when previous crises struck in Jamaica, what would have been the outcome? After every hurricane, we end up, there you go. We end up having to borrow more. You would see the debt to GDP increase. But what was different this time around? This time around, government, because it has adopted a far better fiscal management of the economy, we had buffers. We were able to deploy the largest social welfare program in the history of Jamaica. We did that. And we did it not just once, we did it a few times in several areas, targeting people for support and benefit. The truth is that after the last financial crisis, it took us 10 years to recover the level of employment and the level of economic growth. 10 years. Coming out of the worst pandemic in 100 years, we were able to bring down the debt still, we were able to recover the jobs we lost, listen to me carefully, increase the number of jobs that we have. Just before the pandemic, we were bragging that we had 7% and 6% unemployment. And that was the lowest in the history of Jamaica. Yes. After the pandemic, reaffirmed in the latest Statin report, our unemployment rate is at 4.5%. That's the lowest ever. We have not only recovered the jobs we lost in COVID, we surpassed it. Inflation immediately after the pandemic went to 11%. We are now back down to 5.8%, just within what we target for inflation, which is 4 to 6%. The fundamentals of the Jamaican economy has never been this strong. Never. Possibly in the 1950s and 60s when, you know, the economy was just coming into its own, but even then, these figures that we're seeing relative to the time in which we're doing this, we've never seen that before. So what has happened is that institutions like the World Bank and the IMF are taking note of what we're doing. They look at Jamaica's progress in this area and they use it as a model as to, you know, how countries, small developing countries with conscious policies can grow and thrive. So we are going to continue with our good economic management of the country. And that will become a part of brand Jamaica. When you hear of Jamaica, you're going to hear of a country that has come through very difficult economic struggles, but is recovering well and is innovating, a country that is increasing its productivity, increasing its efficiency, and seriously on its way to becoming an economic powerhouse in the region. That is going to be part of the definition of brand Jamaica. I mean, there will always be challenges, but I think we are on the right path for that. So, as Jamaicans, when you articulate within your society and you hear other people talk about what's happening, the economy of their country, you can look at what is happening with Jamaica and compare. And you can take pride in that. We're bringing down our debt. We have our debt under control. We continue to bring that down. We have put in place the institutions to properly manage our fiscal affairs. We're, you know, strongly compliant and continue to work in being compliant with the global requirements to participate in the global financial system. Jamaica is a place for investment. We are a place and a destination for investment. Now, there are other areas of the economy that we have to pay attention to. Having solved the fiscal issues in the economy, we now have to solve the efficiency issues, the customer service issues, the quick and efficient delivery of public services issues, which create pain points for the society, the modernization of our infrastructure, so that when you come to Jamaica, you feel like you're in a place that's developing and booming and has the services and facilities. So you can't deal with those issues until you solve the economic engine issue. So I think largely we are there with the economic engine. What we need to do now is take the dividends of the good economic management and now put it into ensuring that our public sector is properly compensated, but we have to ensure that our public sector is properly missioned as well, that they understand that they have to be efficient and they have to serve the public. That is absolutely important. And then we have to use the dividends from the economy to deal with some of the pain points in the society. We have to fix the roads, put in the water supply, put the new buses on the road, collect the garbage, improve the police. Well, we deal with compensation for public sector workers. We said that. I didn't call any one profession. So what have we been doing in this regard? So we've gone through the public sector compensation and the wage review, and that is an ongoing process. You will hear quite a bit about that in the Jamaican media. It is going to be an extended process as the various sectors in the public service enter into, I wouldn't use the term negotiation, but they enter into dialogue about their various compensation packages to be realigned according to the overall compensation review. So that is ongoing. The next phase of that is to turn our public sector into a performance-based public sector, where people know that they are working to time and they are working to target, that their performance is being measured and tied to their compensation. So that's the next phase of the development of Jamaica. In parallel, some of you who have been to Jamaica would see that we are making massive investments in infrastructure. You would have seen the North-South Highway, you would have seen the extension of the East-West Highway with Williamsfield Leg, which we have just opened up. You would have seen the Harbour View going all the way around to Port Antonio. All of that road we have redeveloped. Massive infrastructure development. When you drive on those roads, it's like driving on any highway here in Ottawa. It's fantastic. And that is going to continue. There is a long-term program for the next 20 years of just building out the road infrastructure. And it's not just highways, it's about fixing the community roads as well. So we have announced a massive $40 billion Spark program, which will start on improving community roads and local roads and main thoroughfares, so that the average Jamaican can feel the benefit of this improved economy. So I'm satisfied that the infrastructure plan, particularly as it relates to roads, and it's not just putting on the asphalt. And when we say a road now, we are putting in fiber optics, we are putting in new water mains, we are putting in sensors, we are putting in drainage, bridges and sidewalks and rails, and we're really going to give Jamaica that modern first world feel when it comes to your transportation, your road network. Then, you know, those of you who grew up in Jamaica would know that, you know, every parish has a capital. It's not the same as a capital in, you know, it's usually a one road. Some of them may have branches of small town, and we say this is the urban area that we call the town capital. And in every town capital you have a market. And of course the market may not be in the best state. Of course you have a tax collection, inland revenue service there. You have maybe a bank, not all of them have. And one thing you're certain of, there is spillover vending on the street sides. And the sidewalks weren't built for mass pedestrian traffic. And the roads are very small, and they're very congested. The truth is that when those towns were conceived, they weren't thinking of Jamaica with 3 million people. They weren't designed as towns. But it has fallen to this generation that we can't just accept, because what has happened is that our planners and many of our politicians and leaders have just accepted the infrastructure as it is and don't see that it can be changed. But worse is that some of the residents, though they are very discomforted by what is there, they don't want to change either. They don't want a disruption because they feel they're going to be made worse off. So if you have to move vendors off the street, they're going to say, hey, you're going to take away my custom. I have to be here because this is where people pass and this is where I make my sale. And if I say to the taximan, hey, you have to park over here, they say, no. People are not going to walk from over there to come over here. So the issue of building out new cities and townships and improve is not a simple issue of just building infrastructure. Right? We have to engage the citizens. We have to let them understand this process. So I'm saying this to you to say it's not going to happen overnight. None of what I'm saying here can happen overnight. But what I want to communicate to you is that there is a process that has begun. And what is different is that we have the economy to support these developments. And so Jamaica is in a new phase of its development. So for example, we have started to build out an entirely new town in St. Thomas. Yes, an entirely new town in St. Thomas. I see a lot of people here are from St. Thomas. Now remember, when we were doing the road to St. Thomas, oh my, the complaints, and deservingly so, people rightfully so, because it created great dislocation. But the road is almost complete, people understand, and they now see the new Morant Bay Urban Center being built. It's under construction. And we decided to do it that way so that we did not have to further inconvenience people in the old town of Morant Bay. So we found 25 acres of land which was not being used, the old Goodyear factory. It's laid there for almost 30 years unutilized, and we have decided to build a brand new town. This is going to be the first purpose-built township in Jamaica for a long time. I mean, and it is under construction. The second one is Bernard Lodge. Don't know how many of you heard about the Bernard Lodge development. Bernard Lodge, an old sugar plantation. That's in St. Catherine. And we have now done an entire master plan, and we have gotten developers to come in, and they have now started construction of a new housing estate. 15,000 houses are slated for that development in addition to an urban center, and that is underway. We now have to look at Portland and the town of Port Antonio, and we have put in place a development plan for that, fantastic development plan, and that will begin next year. Then we're going to move to the town of Lucy, because I don't know how many of you have gone back to Hanover in a little while. The traffic to get from Montego Bay to Lucy, through to Lucy to Negril. So that is the next zone. Spanish Town is on our radar, but Spanish Town is going to require a plan of a different scale. You know, Spanish Town is the old capital. You know, Jamaica has had 3 capitals, you know. Which was the first? Port Royal. Spanish Town, and then Kingston. Right? So we're gonna do Spanish Town, but that, as I said, that takes a little bit more planning, because that is going to take a lot of money to fix that up. So what I'm saying to you is that we're going to be building a country for which you can be proud. So when you hear other people talking about their country as a place where people are going to invest, not just to go on vacation, but to go and invest, Jamaica is heading into that direction. We're not just a place of dancing, not just a place of music, not just a place of people who run fast, not just a place, you know, of people with lively personalities. But we are also a place for business and investment. Yes. And we are a place of world-class infrastructure where you can choose to live. That's where we're heading. Not going to be an overnight thing, but we're on that path. The challenge that Jamaica has always had is that we oscillate. Sometimes we become indisciplined and want to throw off the rigor of the process. We become disillusioned and believe that to take another path might bring us to where we want to go. And then we find ourselves circuitously coming back to where we were. So the mission is to keep explaining to people that here is the path. The mission is to include people who may think that they have an alternative and bring them into a conversation so that if they genuinely do have an alternative, it gets included in the path. But Jamaica should not veer from the path that we are on now. It's a very important point, because those of you who are old enough would see veering from the path and what it has resulted in. I don't have to go into the diversions of the 70s. But that's our history, and I hope we have learned from the history. But there's another element of Jamaica which I'm going to close on. And I'm sure that when you reminisce about Jamaica, you have romantic views of Jamaica. A place of great respect, where people take pride in themselves. Good morning, good evening. People get upset if you don't tell them good morning, good evening. We have almost a Victorian view of how we should be manners-able, as we call it. And many people are quietly disappointed as they see the new society emerging, which is quite less respectful of the old values. And we're secretly worried of the descent into incivility. And we wonder, how is this going to be arrested? Because any intervention that is made is countered with an attack on freedom. So we are at a stage in the society where we are wrestling with the rights of the individual versus the stability of the society. The rights of the individual versus the national security of the society. And any liberal society will face this. Governments have to skillfully manage it, because an erosion of either is to the detriment. If you erode individual rights, it will cause a collapse in the society. And if you don't pay attention to the public good issues, it will cause an erosion in the society. You have to find a way to delicately balance both. What we do know is that where ignorance is high in the society, that balancing is even more important, but it takes even longer. So one strategy of bringing the society towards that unified view of the future is through education. Right? We have to educate our society. We can't ban them from social media. We can't restrict the information that they have. We can't censor everything. We can't prescribe how they should dress, how they should walk, what they should sing. In the modern world that we live in, what we have to do is empower them to make the right decisions. So I acknowledge the magnitude of the task, because the truth is, some of you, when you left Jamaica with nostalgia about the education system, that it gave you an edge for you to do well. And the education system still produces high-performing Jamaicans. Unfortunately, we lose them. Again, we can't stop them from migrating. So the challenge for this generation, if we want to make the society livable, because that's a real problem for people living in Jamaica and persons like yourself who have migrated, it's the livability of the society. It's just what you expect to be just civility and natural peace. Patience with each other. Just basic, aberrance if garbage is in front of your gate. Yes, you're going to complain about it, but you're going to also sweep it up because you don't like that. So we have kind of lost some of that. And how do we get it back? It has to be primarily through the education system. So the education system, in some instances, I think we could say it would have lost its soul. Meaning that the soul of the education system is the dissemination. Let me put it in this way. There are those who believe that the primary purpose of public education is to deliver knowledge to students. But that's not the primary role of the education system. It's an important role. The primary role of the education system is to deliver values. values. You know, it's interesting. Before you started the event, someone came up here and what was it called? The land acknowledgement. An important value of inclusivity. Now, nobody felt that this was an imposition. But the society here acknowledges that we have to be instrumental in ensuring that every single Canadian understands this value of inclusivity. Of course there are challenges, but it is the response of the state to mandate this in their public education system, in their public ceremonies. In Jamaica, if you attempted that, you might hear, all kinds of contradictory views about imposing on and why should we do this, and this is in favor of one group versus another. And so the society needs to come to this understanding, and we need to get there by ensuring that our education system is structured in such a way that it can deliver values. Value is a political issue, because what you value may not be what I value. So the debate is necessary, what we settle on. But what we do know about values through the education system is that it is absolutely necessary to ensure that your society has something that we call socio-emotional intelligence. And that is regulated. That if somebody step on your suede clocks, you don't beat them to a pulp. So it's not just depending on the church or the home, but the state has to say, listen, man, what it means to be a Jamaican is that if someone steps on your suede clocks and it is not a threat to your life, then violence is not the only way to resolve conflict. And in fact, we should abhor violence. But it comes down to, that's the little thing. But if somebody steals your land, let me put it another way. If your brother steals your land, you shouldn't hire somebody to kill him. If you have a dispute with an intimate partner, let her go or let him go. Wish them well. So the livability of the society in terms of getting on top of this violence, which is just taking over as the only means of resolving conflict, this is something that we have to address in an instrumental and a deliberate way. So it's not something that we just talk about. So I'm not just talking about it. So as government, we're busy dealing with the fiscal issues to make sure that the economy is running right, so that we get the dividends, so that we can deal with the infrastructure issues, so that we can deal with the public service, so that we can deal with the efficiency in the delivery of public service to the public. But then there is this big mission of how do we change this negative pall that has befallen us of violence that has just taken over so much of our society. And we've started by putting in place a task force to review our education system, education transformation report. That was done. So we have now put in place an implementation structure, how we're going to change the education system. We have appointed a commission led by an eminent Jamaican pediatrician, medical scientist, who Dr. Maureen Sams-Vaughan, Professor Maureen Sams-Vaughan, and that commission will give us a report very soon, and then based upon that, we intend to make some changes to the structure of government to deal with this issue of violence. Obviously, crime is a major challenge. In that regard, I think we have, in the last 7 years, we have invested heavily in our police force. The JCF of 10 years ago is not the JCF of today. The JCF has improved significantly. But it is not a flip of a switch. You know, investigating a crime takes time. To train an investigator takes, 2 to 3 years sometimes. To entrench this culture of intelligence gathering, discipline and rigorous investigation, to entrench that in a force of 14,000, it takes time. To have the force being understanding and respectful of human rights, it takes time to train the new officers, to put that in the curriculum, to let them understand, in addition to the other systems that have to be in place, like the Independent Commission of Investigation and so forth, and the internal systems of the police. All of those things are in place. So I've taken up so much of your time, and I hope that I made sense. But the message, the message is that we acknowledge the great things that we have done and who we are on the world stage and our pride and dignity. But we also recognize that that greatness, pride, and dignity is not a static and permanent status. We have to continue to work at it as a people. And we have to expand and deepen and broaden and strengthen our brand, and we individually have to contribute to it. And that you have a government that understands this and is working strategically towards this. And that we recognize and acknowledge, and we're not hiding away or sugarcoating what the challenge is for Jamaica. We know what it is, and we have plans in place, not just plans, but there's tangible, visible action being taken to put us on that path. So yes, we are building a new Jamaica. And as the great poet would say, the rain a fall, but it dirty tough. But I'm going to flip it, which our Minister of Foreign Affairs taught me this one. The dirty tough, but rain a fall.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we tried to barrel through, and we still want to have you have your voice. You know, the ministers and the prime minister is used to bilateral meetings and multilateral and quadrilateral and all the laterals. So we would like to have our multilateral now, right? What I'm going to ask, there are 2 microphones in the audience. Please, no preambles. 1 question per person, and as brief as possible. I give you an example. You don't have to tell us about when you were growing up in that part and then, and so forth. Just get to it, right? And let's see how quickly we can get through this. We're trying to, make time out of the air. So move quickly and let us continue to remember that we are in a sanctuary. Right? Right, Pastor? Reverend Doctor? We're still in a sanctuary. And after this, I'll tell you where refreshments are and do our thank yous, okay? All right. Just say your name quickly and go ahead. I'm going to go from here and then I'm just going to go back and forth, all right? Go ahead.
Good evening, Most Honorable Prime Minister and Honorable Minister. I really want to thank you for being here this evening, and your presence here means a lot to me, and I'll tell you why. I know that the last 2 days must have been very onerous on you, and for you to take the time to be here, it shows me that you care. And yes. And having said that, brings me to the one question that I have for you this evening. I'm just told that it is one. I had so many. But, Honorable Prime Minister, the farm workers, it cannot be that the Canadian at the political directorate, the intellectual elite, think that the farm workers are not being treated in the way that they should. Some people actually call it modern day slavery. I have had the opportunity to sit and meet with a farm worker who explained to me the tyranny of the situation. And I cannot understand why it is that our leaders, particularly through the Ministry of Labor, refuse to believe them, refuse to believe your own people. No, not all of us are track and field stars. Some of us are just ordinary people trying to make a life. And we feel emboldened when our leaders believe in us and rise to our protection and speak on our behalf. And that's a matter I would love for you, sir, to address in any way that you can.
Okay, farm workers. And if your question is asked, you can sit,
We're not going to give you any demerits for having added a preamble, although Mr. Ney said no preamble. But to welcome your question because it's an important one. The issue is complicated because we all know that the farm work program has built a lot of families and a lot of communities, so it's valued by a lot of people. And it therefore is one which people are very sensitive about. There is no justification that can be made, given, derived, drafted, proposed, that could justify any circumstance that would result in the inhumane treatment of our citizens. Whether it is that they are seeking better opportunities or in any other circumstance. So that is true for the farm work program as it is for any other program. As leaders, the fact is that when you commission an investigation, you get a report, and you deal with that report, with what is put in, presuming that it is a credible one, because the system which was used to establish the investigation was a credible one. If it is, however, that it is not complete and it does not reflect the whole story, then it must be our responsibility to inquire further. So I am happy to tell you that Minister Charles is actually visiting Canada next week, and it is his mission to visit employers as well as the relevant authorities to make further inquiries about the reports that do not match up with the document which the government of Jamaica received. So we're not taking it as a given. And so I want to thank you for raising it and giving us the opportunity to share that development. There is a Senate committee as well, and on it, a Jamaican senator, a Jamaican-born senator sits, Senator Moody, and they are charged with and are making inquiries about the process and are making recommendations. This is the process, the whole framework of the Farm Work Program and the individual program, because remember, it's more than one. And it may be that the problems are with one program and not with another. So the scope of the problem is being assessed as well from the Canadian perspective, and we're engaging with them and promoting and encouraging that work to take place. Because you want to preserve the benefit, but not at the cost, not at all costs. So be assured.
So I just wanted to jump in and support Minister's position. Listen, if the program is contravening the laws of Canada, the standards, principles, and policies of Canada, if it is convening the laws of Jamaica, our policies, principles, and expectations and standards, then there is no argument. We want to know. So the challenge we faced is that some participants were saying there wasn't a problem, and some were saying there is a problem. So it is a duty of the government, obviously, to take any complaint seriously and to investigate it. And that is why Minister Charles is tasked to come back to Canada, because there was a previous delegation before, to come back and do a thorough check. And I think that there is also interest on the Canadian side to see whether or not the program is meeting the standards of Canada's law. And Jamaica is interested to see as well whether or not the program meets the standards of our law. And if it doesn't, we have to work to fix it without prejudice to the people who benefit from the program, meaning the Jamaican farm workers and the Canadian farmers. So I think this is an opportunity to improve the program.
Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome and thank you for the presentation. My name is Sharon Nelson. I'm with the Jamaica Association of Montreal, and we do have a good delegation here from Montreal. So my question is around the diaspora and the impacts of the diaspora in Jamaica and on government. And we have here Dr. Sylvanus Thompson, who has been a part of the diaspora for a very long time. But so what I'm really interested in knowing is how the diaspora impacts some of the decisions or some of the recommendations made by the diaspora, and particularly the Diaspora Council, in the greater thinking of how Jamaica can be better and how people outside of Jamaica can be helping from a perspective of knowledge and expertise that you spoke about earlier. Thank you.
Thanks so much. One of the things that we are doing, and I mean, some of the impacts I feel can never, thank you, sir, can never actually be measured because they happen informally. And they happen that way because people want them to be that way. And I think Prime Minister, you know, when he spoke about Jamaica being a liberal democracy, we are very free as people, and we are, I mean, for good and for bad, very permissive in terms of how things can take place. This may lead to suboptimal results sometimes, because when you try to organize and centralize, sometimes it's perceived as a constraint or an imposition of a will, as opposed to simply reorganizing how things are done so that they can be harnessed and leveraged to greater impact. So there are programs that are underway, such as, for example, the Adopt a Clinic program, which encourages persons, communities, groupings, families, companies to adopt a clinic and pool funds that can be for identified health clinics with specific needs that can be upgraded in a sustainable way to deliver benefits to our community. Some people would prefer to just bring down a suitcase of things on a one trip, donate it, and go, because that's how they feel like doing it. But if we were to pool and adopt a clinic which has specific needs and support then we might get a better result and attack rather communities one by one and make a better impact. So it is hoped that through groupings like the Diaspora Council, this type of program can be shared more, that suggestions from the diaspora about how we can pool and leverage more can also be communicated to the government through the council. This, of course, would be through meetings with the ministry. There's the diaspora policy has been mainstreamed, and we're working on an action plan now so that in each ministry there will be diaspora focal points to help to stream the suggestions and the programs in a way that leverage them to greater benefit. It means doing things differently. So it won't be the way it was in 2004 when diaspora was first engaged, but that doesn't mean that we'll be worse off for it. It means that we might actually be better. So we continue to work on it. We are open to the suggestions. And so tell Silvanus, are you taking notes, sir? Who, as you know, is a dedicated member of the community. And to remember that even those of you who don't identify as quote-unquote diaspora, you are Jamaican, and that means, that's what it means. So connect, engage, look for information, go on the ministry's website, go on the GIS website, look at what's happening, and make suggestions about how we can come together. I cannot read this. But it does say something about the council members. And they're working, of course, working with the ministry to engage and share ideas. This is how the council works. It's how it's intended to work. And the youth council is intended to bring in the next generation, help them feel more connected, to look at programs that they find relevant and interesting, rather than us insisting that they do things our way and that they only speak on issues defined as youth issues, as opposed to what they want to do, which is to contribute broadly and widely. So that's it. That's a very, I can't go into everything clearly. We could have a whole night on that alone. But thank you for the question, and I hope that helps in some of the vision of how it is we would like things to work. Yeah.
Thank you. Back over here.
Thank you. Good evening. In recent times, it was announced that the visa requirements for some of the Caribbean countries were lifted. And when I did not hear Jamaica mentioned, I felt very betrayed. I felt very disappointed for people, because I believe that the Jamaican community is one of, if not the largest community, Caribbean community here in Canada. So how could this have taken place? So my question is, what is our government doing, or what will you be doing to address this matter? Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for that question. So firstly, they haven't lifted visa restrictions. What they have done, although the media reported it that way, we have to read things twice. Because when we go beyond the headlines, what was explained is that they have a new electronic travel authorization process for quote-unquote known travelers, who are persons who hold or who have previously held a Canadian visa and or a US visa. So this is not at large, and it's not visa-free. It's a new process. So that's the first thing to clarify, the facts. The second thing is that they did a global assessment, and several countries were included, several weren't. Jamaica was one of those who were not. We weren't the only Caribbean countries, but we were one of the countries not included. So I invited in the Canadian High Commissioner to get a better understanding of why it is this decision was taken versus other countries. And the explanation was shared that we have a lot of flaws in how we deal with visa applications. So persons don't fill out the forms fully. When they ask questions, we just don't answer them because we feel that there are too many questions. They ask about matters like previous convictions, and we feel that if we put no, they won't know because their systems don't speak to the US and the UK and wherever. The number of refusals, ultimately, without going into all the details, the number of refusals of applications was twice the threshold that they had assessed for countries that would be eligible. So these are not things which are within government control. These are individual actions that impact on the whole of us. They are private actions that impact on the public good. So we're people taking away from the brand. People use unauthorized agents, even though there's an authorized agent list on the website. They choose other people who sometimes don't do things the right way, and then it colors the brand. So we have asked them to look at us again. I have spoken on this matter in the public, and it has been published. Irie helped and published as well. It was on YouTube. I spoke about it, even with the US diaspora, about encouraging people to do things differently. Read the instructions fully. Don't just ask any travel agent. Go look on the website for the authorized agents and use those. We are not smarter than everybody else in terms of beating this kind of system. Just try and do it right. And so that hopefully our numbers will get better, because the relationship is good. And they were quite clear that the relationship between the Jamaican government and the Canadian government is solid. And if it was a purely political decision, a foreign affairs decision, then we would have been included. But it's an immigration decision based on set criteria. So again, we've asked them to look back at it. We've been encouraging people to encourage their family and friends who are applying to do differently, to do better, and to follow the instructions and to use the correct path. And we're hopeful that we will get a better result on the next assessment.
Thank you for the clarification. This gentleman here.
Most Honorable Prime Minister, as I understand it, the Jamaican Constitution is now on a revision stage. Are there any vehicles that foreign nationals like myself could have input? The Constitution is under revision as we speak. Are there any vehicles to which foreign nationals like myself could have input in those revisions?
So nationals living overseas?
Yes.
You're not foreign?
If I might help. So Minister Malahoo Ford, who chairs the committee, that she's a minister appointed by Prime Minister as the minister responsible for legal and constitutional affairs, and she's leading this process. So we've spoken about the fact that we need to include our diaspora, and they're developing a schedule. She just, in fact, did the first in-person consultation in the UK last week, 2 weeks ago. And so people had the opportunity to come and have detailed discussion and share their views. And it is intended to do that in Canada and the US as well. That is our key diaspora locations, and the dates will be published. The High Commission will publicize them as well. I am encouraging her to also use the virtual means, because everybody can't make it at the time that you might set for a minister to be physically present in your location. Whereas if we have it on Zoom, you can dial in from the comfort of your home and ask the questions and make the suggestions that you want. So we're looking at trying to expand the schedule, but in short, sir, yes, you will have the opportunity to have your say.
And you can always write. You can always write to the commission. You have those details. But if you send your letter to the High Commission, she will ensure it gets to the Constitutional Review Commission.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you for your leadership of our beautiful country. So you spoke about Jamaica as a brand, and I just want to know, what is the government's plan in order to protect the brand of our natural resources. That seems to be privatized, to be protected from foreign influence, as well as to protect all the growth that we have had economically, because climate change is coming. So what is the plan in order to prepare us to face that?
So I mean, by the response to the question, I see this as a very sensitive issue and one in which there is great interest. You know, I just cut to the chase on these issues. I mean, there is a view that somehow foreigners have taken over Jamaica or are taking over our resources. Let me give you a little context about Jamaica. Let me not start from the colonial period and enslavement. But the concept of Jamaica and its economy has always depended on investment from outside. The issue that local Jamaicans are dispossessed of ownership of local resources is a separate issue in many instances from investment coming into the country. So the government has to pursue a policy that empowers local Jamaicans to exercise ownership of local resources. In Canada, you do that through owning a home, owning a business, buying stocks on the stock market, owning land, intellectual property, and patents that are protected by law. And then you are able to trade these on a market, benefit from it, or pass it on for generations. Because of the history of our country, not all Jamaicans would have an endowment. So some people have family land, but nobody really owns it. Some people have no land whatsoever, so there's nothing to pass down from generation. So there's a large part of the Jamaican population who they are not part of the ownership economy. And so there's a sense of injustice in the society. Why this person owns something and I don't own anything? Don't tell me about whether he worked or his father gave it to him. Why my father didn't have anything to give to me? Or why wasn't I able to get a job? So there's this issue of social injustice in the country. We can talk about it, and we can have, moving speeches about the injustices, or we can build an economy that educates our people, gives them skills, allow them to participate in the economy, allows them to buy a house, own property, develop intellectual property, whether it is IP in technology, in music, in the creative industries, and have a market to trade, or they can buy stocks of a company. Why can't Jamaicans do that? Why can't we leverage little assets that we have and approach the banks and get a loan and start a business? These are the things that we should focus on. And this is a thinking that we want our Jamaicans to have. Because saying that foreigners are coming to own Jamaica, it would be the same thing as saying immigrants are coming to take away jobs or own businesses here. It's inconsistent with a liberal democratic country. Inconsistent. Because the truth is, at the same time, we want the hotels so that we can get the jobs. We want the businesses so that we can get the jobs. We want the businesses so we can get the access. So I think we have to kind of recraft how we view our economy and our country. So what we have been doing as a government is trying to empower our people to be part of the ownership economy, to own their own homes, own their own businesses, to protect their intellectual property, to let them, our people, be empowered to create wealth. That's what we want to do, right? That's the first answer to your question. We're empowering Jamaicans to create wealth through education, through skills training, through employment, through developing real estate, providing them with infrastructure. Secondly, the deeper issue about the management of scarce resources and non-renewable resources, such as our bauxite. Those are issues that we have to pay close attention to. And the truth is, for many years, we did not have the optimum level of regulation of those industries. I would say to you that many communities did suffer from the environmental fallout. But I think certainly within the last 15 or so years, there's been significant improvement in the regulatory environment. I'm not saying it is perfect, but the regulatory environment has improved. There is a question about foreigners coming in and owning businesses and building roads and buying. The truth is that we have an open economy, and once the economy is doing well, what you want is for people to come and not just invest in your country, but to come and live in your country. Remember now, the investments that come can be exploitative. They can come and just take back out their money, right? But what is it that we need to do to keep the money in Jamaica? In the same way that you come here and you may send back something to Jamaica, but you keep your money here. You buy houses here, you buy cars here, you send your children to school here. Why is it that people choose to come here to live and make a living? We can make Jamaica into that place of choice for people to live, work, do business, raise their family, and retire in paradise. That is what we want to do. That is the Jamaica you want to create. Eventually that you can say, you know what? I have a choice. I'm going to go back to Jamaica. Yes. So I do understand the concern about, I'm not going to call any country or get into that kind of geopolitics. But nobody else can own Jamaica but Jamaicans. We own Jamaica politically. We own Jamaica socially. And we want Jamaicans to control the commanding heights of the economy as well. But we want our economy to be big, that we can bring in everybody else to participate in our economy. That is the vision for Jamaica.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. Go ahead, you're up next.
Yes. Welcome to the Prime Minister of Jamaica. I'm from North Clarendon under the Bullhead Mountain.
Yes.
And here, I won't take much time because we all have to be at work at 7 in the morning. But I don't know how to phrase my question because I have the same question that my fellow Jamaican had said about who owns Jamaica, who gets the contract. Is it owned by foreigners? But then I will turn over and you said in your speech, give Jamaica a chance. Yes, we want to give, as you said, give Jamaica a chance. Does the rich get it or does the poor get the chance in Jamaica? And how can we invest for doctors and nurses to stay? How can you invest as you're invested in the roads in the islands, but on the north coast? What about getting up under the Bullhead Mountain? The roads are bad. Yes. very bad. You're only investing where the tourist goes. But when we as Jamaicans come back home and to go to the hotel, oh, they look, where some of the Jamaicans are not welcome in the hotels. They're not, and it's a shame. We invest and we give back to Jamaica. So it is our country. And since we talk about the investment, invest in Jamaica for Jamaicans. Thank you. Welcome.
I mean, what is clear whenever I talk to a community of Jamaicans is this deep sense of social injustice. I'm not oblivious to it. It's a deep-seated issue of unfairness generationally in the society. A sense that somehow the people who have already will continue to get, and the people who don't have will never get a chance. It's a sense that only those who are connected will get, and those who are unconnected will never get. There's a great distrust of government, and there's just a sense that, you know, it's an unfair place. And I get that. I understand that. And that's historic. It's not going to, I don't expect that we're going to change that view overnight. But I would approach it from this angle. Are we going to give up on Jamaica? In other words, is the complaint the end of the issue? I throw my hands up and say, this is how it will always be and it will never change? Or do I structure which is what I think has happened. People have structured their response to unfairness. So they're going to act as if the systems are unfair. And I give you a little joke. I hope, let me not give you that joke because these days, no, but when I was growing up, I don't know how many of you would recall that people had to line up for a long time to get their birth certificate at in Spanish Town, and people would literally pay to get a spot. And when the government changed the process and put in a far more efficient process, people still did that. They still came, lined up, and paid for a spot when it wasn't necessary. Because, we just expect that this is how the system will be. And we have to figure out a way how to get around that system. My response to you is this. This administration, and I'm sure other administrations, and I'm sure it's the ethos of the political class, that the objective now is to empower all Jamaicans to be economically independent. Right? That's my goal. That's what my administration is about. It is also about ensuring that there is respect for the views of all Jamaicans, which is why we take a very liberal view of, people are allowed to express their views, express themselves, because any interference with that could easily be interpreted as trying to interfere with freedoms and rights. We take a view as well that we want Jamaicans to be part of the ownership economy. We want you to own a house. We want you to own land. We want you to own shares. And we want you to benefit from your labor and your effort. And that's all that the government is doing. But there is also a great effort in improving our justice system. We have spent quite a bit of resources on trying to improve our courts, putting in new systems in our courts so that our justice system can respond to the many grievances and disputes in the country and have resolution through a formal system. We have put in place an entire new process of what Minister Truck always called restorative justice. So all of those things we are doing. So I want to communicate to you that the government is vested in building a fair Jamaica. What you have said to me, why are we building roads where the tourists can benefit and no road to Bullhead or Bullethead? And again, we have to be sensitive about that. Yes, we want to be strategic in building out the assets where we can get more funds to go and build the road to is it Bullethead? In Bullet Mountain in northern Clarendon. So sometimes we make strategic decisions, but it's not preference for one over the other. But just to repeat that in the same way that we are building out the main roads and the main highways, we have now launched a massive program to deal with the local roads. I'm not sure that your neck of the woods, the road is going there, but the program is in place.
Soon come, soon come. Okay, so we're looking at the clock, folks, and we're pressed. So what I'm going to attempt is a blitz. So if you can succinctly put one word out there, because as you've noticed, Senator and the Prime Minister have been taking care to answer to the issue. So can you speak issue? Just say the issue, one word, and you go back to your seat. They will answer the issue, okay? I'm writing down all the issues so far as well, so we'll keep it on track. Okay, so one word, what's the issue? Let's go.
Issue. Hi, my name is Arlene Bryant, I'm from Quebec. Family unification, right? That's an issue. Because I noticed it taken almost 2 years to get your family here when Canada takes 3 months.
Got it. Family unification. We're not answering yet. I'm writing them down. Next.
Good evening, Kyle Wright, Vice President of the Caribbean Students Association of Carleton.
All right, Carleton.
And I just quickly want to point out that we have the bright young Jamaicans at the back there under Trinidad. Yeah?
All right.
But the issue is making Jamaica the innovation hub of the Caribbean, and what is being done to increase innovation and, more importantly, provide venture capital for aspiring entrepreneurs in Jamaica.
Okay. And we know, Senator, that's up your alley. Next, quickly, your issue.
Good afternoon or good night. I'm Doris Wright from Jamaica in the parish of Trelawney.
All right.
My issue is the Ulster Spring Hospital.
Oh, it's a specific issue. A specific hospital. The clinic. Polyclinic. You want it to be a hospital, all right. A whole heap of things, go on. Next, your issue.
All right, my name is Sasha Gay Laban and I'm a journalist. My issue is safety and security, and where does that fall in branded Jamaica?
Okay, that I'm sure is a shared one. Next.
Issue. My name is Neville Moses. I've asked this question before from delegates from Jamaica. When is Jamaica going to include the diaspora in the elections?
Diaspora vote. This comes up a lot in diaspora centers. Next. Quickly, you're losing your spot.
Issue, international debt, and who do we owe?
Who do we owe? Okay. International debt. Go ahead.
Issue, crime. Sick and tired as a Jamaican to hear all the atrocities being that's happening to young kids, women, the rape, the murder. I want to know what are the measures that are being put in place to curtail crime. And I will offer my services.
All right.
I will offer my services. I've worked in security here. I was in the Canadian military for over 10 years. And I will help in any capacity to help curtail crime in Jamaica.
All right. Thank you. So, safety and security again. Go ahead, sir, over to my left. Go ahead. You're up.
Me?
Yes, yes.
First, we gotta say big welcome to the Prime Minister, Mr. Holness, and his Foreign Minister.
Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade.
You can tell me to talk about issues. I don't want to quit tissues. You know, I'm here to wipe my tears. I come to talk about substance.
All right.
Mr. Holness, you not even give us a little piece. You not even give us a little piece at a constitutional reform. Just a piece of doubt. We want to hear about what's going on in Jamaica. The Jamaican people, do they have a say in the future of Jamaica? That's what you should address to us here, Mr. Holness. The value of education is not submission. Right. The value of education is to develop our country. And with a proper education system, we can move Jamaica above and beyond. So, Mr. Holness, I was one of your greatest fans. And I want to see a reform.
All right.
And go back to Jamaica and show the people them love.
All right.
Love. One perfect love.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don't tell me to hurry up, man. Don't tell me to hurry up when I talk about my country, man.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Remember where we are. Remember where we are.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Simone Dunbar-Nesbitt. My question is tax incentive breaks for returning residents.
You have to repeat it. They didn't hear you.
Tax incentive breaks for returning
breaks for returning residents. Tax incentivized tax breaks for returning residents. All right. Next up, sir.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Minister Holness, for being here and delegation. My topic is really not about the issues, which is probably overwhelming you guys by now. But, you know, as most honorable Prime Minister of Jamaica, who was once the youngest Prime Minister to be appointed, I think that's something we should celebrate.
Okay.
But today, my real question to you, Mr. Minister, is on the topic of leadership and the point of value concerning honesty and integrity. When it comes on to honesty and integrity during your political career, how have you demonstrated this to the Jamaican people in your own actions and decisions? Point two, how do you reconcile with the Jamaican diaspora who may have felt betrayed by your honesty and integrity that has been demonstrated through your political career? How do you reconcile your honesty and integrity that many of the resilient and hopeful faces here who is staying here at a very long time for your attendance and may have been secretly disappointed when it comes on to honesty and integrity?
Thank you. Thank you. Next, I noticed some people joined the line that weren't in the line, not playing fair. Let's quickly.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth, and my one question is, what is the plan to improve healthcare in Jamaica?
Healthcare. Second time it's coming up here. Go ahead. Next. You, sir.
Yes, Errol Nesbitt. What I want to ask is the resources that came out of Jamaica in terms of students, scholarships, stuff like that. All those resources came out of Jamaica, and that brought Jamaica down over the years. Now resources are here. Is Jamaica going to spend money in the resources that are here to actually develop Jamaica further? Are they going to do that? You're here as the Prime Minister. Resources are here.
Okay. Tapping into the diaspora.
Gen Z.
Got it.
Gen Z, Millennium. There's
yeah,
Generation X.
We get it. We get
There's,
it. We get it.
What do you call it?
We get
boomers.
it. We overs. We overs. We overs. We overs. Quickly.
Good night, everyone. Althea Robinson from Montreal Jamaica Association. My issue is shipping and the cost from Montreal. It is very, very tremendously expensive. I mean, a barrel could be up to $160, and not to mention the barrel and to buy the products to put in the barrel. It's a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Last two.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Raymond Kirkland. My question is to you. Well, you've got the Firearms Act, Firearms Act in the book. I'm wondering what's happening with the Bail Act as well as the Corrections Act.
Firearms Act, Bail Act, Corrections Act.
Yes, good afternoon. My issue is real independence, the referendum, and Jamaica becoming a republic.
Okay. The Republic. Last.
My name is Carmen Hamilton, and I want to say thanks to the Prime Minister. Once I heard him pray for the country, and I said he was the only Prime Minister, government leader that ever publicly prayed for his country. I appreciated that. It's a little way back. But I'm here to say that the houses that the bauxite built for the people who they move off the land, the houses are not good. I have a package that I would like to give to the High Commissioner to look at, because whatever material is used in the ceiling, it's all mold.
Okay.
And mold and more mold. And I went out and I couldn't even sit in my mom's house.
Okay.
Because there was stuff falling.
So homes, bauxite, poor quality of the housing. All right. You're the last.
I'm one of the best last ones to ask a question.
Hurry.
You believe me?
Hurry.
All right. I interviewed Minister Montague some years ago before the Security Minister Chang on the radio here in Ottawa. And one of the major questions that I asked him in like an hour and a half interview with him was, what are we doing to protect Jamaica's borders from a coastal point of view? Do we have coastal guards out there like we have coastal? So I brought that up because I said, if people are going to other places to bring guns into Jamaica on boats, what does Jamaica, I asked him, number one, does Jamaica have a coast guard?
Yes.
Right? Majorly.
Jamaica does.
Right. Now, the issue was, how many boats do they have out on the water protecting our coastline? And
so the
things
coast,
like that, so.
Protecting Jamaica's borders from the coast.
From a coastal perspective.
From the coast. All right. You've written them all down, and it's a lot. So, blanket.
All right, let's take national security. The government of Jamaica, this administration, increased the national security budget threefold. No other government has spent on national security like this administration has. When we took over, I won't say too much about what our security capacity is, but we had no offshore vessels. Jamaica has a standing Coast Guard. Now we have several vessels of extensive capacity, not just to prevent illegal entry, which we do quite a bit of, and we do now serious work in ensuring that we don't have a massive immigration flow from Haiti and other countries. But we also use it to protect our fishing. We have fishing grounds that are quite profitable and other countries poach, and we now have the capabilities to manage our fishery stock. So we have invested heavily in our domain protection, including the installation of coastal radars and aerial surveillance. I won't say exactly what that is, but we have capabilities now. So Jamaica has invested heavily in protecting our coastline, protecting our blue economy, and protecting our shores, and increasing our domain awareness. So that's clear. That investment also extended to improving the resources of the police. So as I said before, Jamaica's military and police, significant improvement, and we're seeing results. The challenge is, of course, that for the last decade of entrenchment of violence, we are now seeing what has been said, the dastardly acts of gruesome murders, quadruple and triple murders, which is of grave concern. In response to that, aside from the increased investment in policing, we have also changed laws. A gentleman asked about the new Firearms Act, which is in place, which has increased the penalty for the illegal possession of a firearm to now a minimum sentence of, was it 15 years? 15 years. So we have done that. The new Bail Act is making its way, it's passed, the new Bail Act has passed, and the Corrections Act, which is necessary for the reform of prisons, that is currently being developed. There are some other pieces of legislation which will come. The new Domestic Violence Act that is being developed. We are now have in Parliament, it's being debated through the parliamentary process, an increase in the penalties for murder. And that is being debated now in our Parliament. So we have attacked the problem from a legislative point of view. We are seeing results. Murders this year are 10% less than they were last year. And yes, and in general, all crimes are down. What has happened is that the profile of murders have changed. Before, more than 75% of our murders were gang-related. What we're seeing this year is that gang-related murders have fallen into the 60%, but domestic violence has risen. So there's a change in the profile and the motivation for crime, which is what I was speaking to. We have spent on the police, we're doing laws. We now need to treat with the human being, the person, because obviously the response to conflict being violence is now at a level where it requires a state response. So that's part of the response. So that's on national security. So forgive me if I hope I've addressed all the issues that the point.
Mostly, yes. Health?
Health. You wanted?
I just wanted to add that on the safety and security side, I wanted to assure you that the government is very clear that there is a cyclic approach. There's a cyclic problem that has to be interrupted, and that we have to deal with it in a holistic way. So Prime Minister has spoken to legislation. He has also spoken to investment that has been made in different elements, which, if I can just supplement, include cybersecurity, include the welfare of police by improving the police stations, building new purpose-built police stations, increase technology, so moving from the big book to the actual technology that you can find the system, electronic ticketing, looking at ensuring that there's a new forensic suite, which will be the quintessential forensic suite for the entire region, so that investigations and prosecutions can be more effectively pursued. The training and the inclusion of lawyers within the police system to ensure that there's better preparation for cases so that prosecutions are successful. So we're not only looking at the investigation side, but the prosecution side of things. And we're also looking at interrupting the cycle of violence. So the restorative justice program that Prime Minister spoke to, which has restorative justice committees in all 14 parishes, with justices of the peace and the custodies, civil society, church, councillors, social workers, who all determine programs to help turn around the lives of people who are in conflict in communities, as well as supporting the child diversion bill and the child diversion policy, which allows for where young people come into conflict with the law, instead of sending them straight into correctional facilities, that they will now be counseled and they will have a behavioral adjustment plan that if they don't stick to it, then they come back to the court and that is reviewed. And we're now looking at the fact that people are saying, well, we need to be looking more closely at holding parents responsible where the children are not being held to account for the programs, that we need to be looking at the parents' role as well. So we're looking at that. That's not in place. The child diversion program is in place. But I'm letting you know that we're thinking about all these different aspects. We have just passed the law also to remove the clause that used to allow in the Child Care and Protection Act, that used to allow parents to just come and give their children to the court to say, listen, he or she is uncontrollable, and they would go into prison. And what that was doing was creating a cycle of them falling into the influence of hardened criminals and coming out even harder themselves. And the psychosocial issues that were leading to them that might have been acting out because of abuse at home or other negative experiences, that was not being dealt with. So we have now established a full therapeutic center at Maxfield Park, which is which is every aspect of care: psychiatry, psychological. This is because I need cheese crunches now, as well as the actual behavioral aspects and therapies, which never used to be available to the average Jamaican. You had to have private care. We have now made that publicly available, as well as, yes please, we have more than doubled the salary of social workers so that we can bring more social workers into the system to help with the work that happens beyond the school gate. So there's a lot of work that's happening on safety and security. We believe it is critical for Brand Jamaica. We believe it's critical for our society and the livability and the future of our young people. So we have been doing it from all aspects, and we will continue. And there's more I could share, but I will stop there and hand back to Prime Minister on the next issue. I hope that's helpful information.
You know, it's amazing, right? For all the challenges that are out there, we can list more than any other government tangible things that are being done. But the issue is, how much do you know? And how much time do we have to convey it to you? And everybody comes with their own mindset, their own agenda. And sometimes when confronted with what we're doing, it's very difficult for people to change their mindset according to the information presented. I want to quickly look at the issue of constitutional reform and the referendum. So the questions are being posed suggest that the government isn't doing anything about constitutional reform, independence, and referendum. But you know, it was this government that put in place the commission because we want to be truly, fully sovereign and independent. There is a process that we started. Yeah, we put it in place. And I'm very happy to see the interest that is there, not just in Jamaica, but in the diaspora. Because there are many issues at play here where our diaspora feels that we need to participate and have a say politically in the country. And there is a sense that the diaspora should be able to vote. But what if I said to you that as long as you are a Jamaican, you can vote in Jamaica if you are registered to vote? If you hold a Jamaican passport, you're living overseas, and you're a resident. If you're a Commonwealth citizen and you're a resident in Jamaica and you register to vote, nobody can stop you. You can vote. So if you're a citizen of Canada, you can and you are resident in Jamaica. Yeah. That is a point that I wish to make to you. But I know that the point that is being asked is whether or not the government is going to change the constitution to allow for someone who identifies as Jamaican but doesn't hold Jamaican citizenship, who lives abroad, would be able to vote. A vote from, that is something that I could not give you a positive answer on. The other question is, are we going to allow remote voting? Meaning that you're a Jamaican, you're registered to vote, but you're not on the island. Can you vote remotely? Again, that is not something that we have contemplated, because even in Jamaica, we don't have remote or online voting. Our laws require you to turn up at that polling station in your constituency and post your vote. Let me not say post your vote, and put your vote in the ballot box physically. Right, so I just wanted to say that. So for those who have the view that somehow the government is reluctant to deal with these issues, no, we took it on amongst the plethora of other things that we have to do as a government, and put a system in place because we feel it is important. The next issue here is healthcare, and I want to just quickly jump on that. We have not had significant investments in our healthcare system for, I would say, 30 years. We have not built a new hospital in 30 years. More than 30 years. And there is no question that there are significant healthcare challenges. But I wish to point out to you that we have taken on the biggest public investment program in healthcare in the last, I would say, 30, 40 years. We are rehabilitating the Cornwall Regional Hospital, a gift from the government of Canada, and that is a 50-year-old hospital, 10-story hospital, and we have gutted the building and we are refurbishing it. It is going to be a first-class medical facility when it is finished. Immediately beside it, it's a multi-billion-dollar project. Immediately beside it, through the government of China, we're building an adolescent hospital, which will be the best in the region. And, well, only in the English-speaking Caribbean when it is completed. It's a 120-bed hospital, so it's children and adolescent hospital. We're improving the Spanish Town Hospital, total refurbishing and expansion. We're going to build a hospital in Portmore. We're improving the Bustamante Children's Hospital. We have built a new, I can't call it a hospital, but it could classify as a hospital. It's a type 5 health center, basically, in Chapelton. We have rehabilitated, refurbished, and built several new clinics. I'm going to check on the situation with the Ulster Spring Polyclinic. I'm going to check on that to see exactly where they are with that. The Diaspora has been very helpful in this regard because you have contributed in adopting clinics and helped to refurbish them. I know that the Canadian Diaspora has adopted a few clinics and are helping. So there is massive investments going on, but not only in the infrastructure. We recently announced new posts. How many new posts? 720 new posts for healthcare professionals. So that is an establishment of more healthcare workers, particularly doctors. So yes, we acknowledge the healthcare is not where we want it to be, but the investments are being made. No other administration, I can say without fear, favor, contradiction, has made the investment that we have made in healthcare. Jamaica was hit by COVID, and you would have seen the impact of COVID. Jamaica did not collapse. Our healthcare workers and our healthcare system stood up and responded as best as we could, and Jamaica came through that just fine. So we do have a fairly robust system, but
we still need to improve it, and we have made the investments so to do.
Okay, I don't know that we will get to everything. What I think is clear is that the government is conveying that they are working and that they need to have more forums like this.
Quickly, Innovation Center.
Yes.
I have to speak to the young people.
Young people.
The government is going to be building 7 new STEM schools: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We include the arts in it, so we call them STEAM schools. But there is a genuine focus of the government to ensure that Jamaica does not miss out on the 4th Industrial Revolution and that our young people are trained. We have appointed 2 investment ambassadors in the area of technology, and they are working incredibly to create data scientists and data engineers. And I've just seen a few of them graduated from the training program, so we are investing in that. We are investing as well with a Jamaican company called Amber Connect. We have created the Amber Academy, where we are training hundreds of Jamaican youth in coding. So they have gone 2 batches now, graduating in coding. So Jamaica is doing fairly well. Our intention is that Jamaica will become the Silicon Valley in terms of providing the labor, providing the engineers, providing the developers in tech. And we are supporting that through the DBJ, the Development Bank of Jamaica, through technology loans. So we are helping small firms being able, they can get a technology loan to equip their operations with computers and software and so forth. So we're creating an ecosystem to support innovation in Jamaica. It's in its nascent stage, but it will be expanded.
That we are also offering new scholarships in STEM, full tuition at UTech, 1,200 scholarships over the next 5 years. The first 250 were granted for this academic year that just started in September. And 1,250 STEM teaching scholarships also being offered, because we're trying to build the capacity also to ensure that we have people to populate the schools that are being built and ensure that the ecosystem will work. Please go to the DBJ website to check on the programs. There's a Big E program, and there are other smaller subset programs that support innovation, but we're also dealing with it from the educational aspect as well.
Very quickly, the question about debt and who we owe. Thankfully, Jamaica's debt profile is one that preserves our sovereignty in a big way. Most of our debt is to multilateral institutions, meaning we owe most of our debt to the IMF, World Bank, IDB. There's not a lot of debt bilaterally, thankfully. So there is a view that somehow Jamaica is heavily indebted to China. Jamaica's debt to China is less than 4% of our national debt. Okay? Jamaica is very careful about borrowing. Now, as I've said before, we have ensured that the fiscal discipline is in place. And the good thing is, our debt has moved from 150% of GDP to now, at the end of this fiscal year, it will be 74% of GDP. The target is to get to 60% by 2027, 2028, thereabout. And I think we will get way below that. Right, that's the target. And we are on track for that. So the concern that our sovereignty is compromised by virtue of debt, 2 things. You will see that we're reducing our debt, and our debt profile is such that most of the debt is to multilateral institutions and not to countries specifically.
Okay. I would say that's the last word. And we want to thank the most honorable Andrew Holness, Jamaica's Prime Minister, and of course, Senator, the Honorable Kamina Johnson-Smith, for spending this much time with us, having no break, no cheese crunches, none of those things, and you're still with us. And I'm sure everybody is peckish, right? So Island Grill catered for this event. And the food, you know, let's go get it. So we want to thank some important persons who, without them, we could not have had this space or we could not have done this. Reverend Dr. Anthony Bailey, thank you. For use of your sanctuary. I understand we even displaced your choir and all kinds of stuff, so we really, really thank you. Claudine Bailey, Claudine Mitchell, members of staff of the High Commission, the people behind the scenes, we thank you. Councillor Dale Jones, special mention to you. We also want to acknowledge in the room J.N. Bank, Paulette Sterling, and her team. They come in from Toronto, you know. So all of us who've traveled from far and wide, if you go downstairs through these two doors, you can go downstairs. There's refreshments provided by Island Grill there. We want to thank them as well in advance. We want to thank the High Commissioner, of course, for hosting this event. And we want to thank everybody for taking the time. You see the clock? You really, really care about Jamaica. That is clear. And we know that we need more of these forums, Prime Minister and Senator. We need more of these forums because what is clear to me is that the word isn't out there enough, okay? So we thank you all. Everybody head that way. Hold on. Let's bless the food. Let's bless the food. All right.
We don't say time for nyam, but we have to pray first, right? Yes, let's give thanks. Good and gracious God, this has been a wonderful evening. We thank you for all that you've provided and for the information that has been shared and the enthusiasm that has been fomented. We give you thanks and we ask your blessing. We go now to refresh ourselves. We have refreshed ourselves in our mind and spirit, and now we go to refresh ourselves in body. And so we pray for the food that will be strengthening us to do those things that are good and just and hopeful. And we pray that you would give us all that we need to do those things that you called us to do. Bless the food. May we be strengthened. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Get home safely, everyone.